morning. Today is another one of our first fives. Today we're looking at this text from Mark chapter 14. And in this story, we're going to find this story of generosity. In fact, one of our church's core values is extreme generosity. The kind of generosity that goes beyond what's even normal. Like, there are a lot of generous people, but have you ever met that person? You know the one that is just extremely generous. They give to things and above things, and they even give probably beyond what they ever should, almost to their own detriment. That kind of generosity is really awe-inspiring. I mean, we probably all know someone who has done really well financially, and they're really generous in lots of ways. But sometimes when we meet that person who maybe hasn't been as successful in business, but they model this generosity of heart and spirit and life, or even time, or their gifts, like when we see that kind of generosity that is just extravagant, we don't know what to do with it. When it goes beyond what's even normal generosity, right? That's really the kind of the story we see here in Mark chapter 14. But it's a story in which when we first glance at it, we kind of go, ooh, that seems like a waste. And so the challenge we have is, what's our heart like in our generosity? It's possible that sometimes generosity could be wasted, right? There's a thing called toxic charity. We can just give to stuff and not really change situations because it's a black hole situation and we give to it. And it's really toxic in the end because it's not redeeming what's broken. Other times, we can give with extreme generosity that really does change everything. And it really is something that's to be awe-inspiring. And that's this story from Mark chapter 14. Here's the story beginning in verse 3. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of a man known as Simon the leper, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, made of pure nard. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages, and the money given to the poor." And they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you can help them anytime you want. But you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured out perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. I tell you the truth, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted to hear this and promised to give him money, so he watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Now this story, I think it does some incredible things for us to understand the way God sees scarcity and abundance. God is always a God of abundance, even though we sometimes think about scarcity. And we see in this story, this woman gets a year's wages on Jesus. Like, that's insane to me. I mean, I can't imagine doing that. I couldn't feed my family if I gave a year's wages away. And yet, this woman gives what is the most precious thing to her, what she holds most dear, what is the most valuable thing she owns. She pours it out for the sake of Jesus. It's a beautifully symbolic act about how Jesus has changed her life and given her this great love. And so we see in this act, this overwhelming joy that she has for Jesus, but she also weeps over him because she knows something is about to change. And yet Judas sees this, and he doesn't believe in a God of abundance. He's bought into a God of scarcity. And so he sees this and goes, this guy can't really be the savior of the world because he would know how valuable this money is. And so what we find also is this picture of how money in particular can become an idol for us. It can be the thing that drives us in ways that are unhealthy. It can be the thing that we hoard and control. And it's why a phrase I've used for years and I'll continue to use because I believe it's true. What has our heart has our wallet. So if I were to look at your checkbook or your online registry, I would see what has your heart. And we see in this story what has Judas's heart is his money, but not this woman. Not for her. In fact, what we see here is that's not what is happening. What we see here is Jesus has her heart. And so everything is laid at his feet. And so the question for you and I is this: does Jesus have everything of ours? Or do we hold back some things because we want to control them and want them to be ours? And we're missing out on the blessing of his words in our life, of his actions in our hearts, of his presence in our everyday life. That's the challenge for you and I to answer. Where do we find ourselves in that? I can't answer that for you today, but I hope you and I will think about this. We serve a God of abundance, not a God of scarcity. May we make sure that money or anything else is never an idol in our life. We'll catch you next time for another First Five.